I find it a bit annoying and frustrating when I criticize a franchise movie or a TV show and people expect for me to just lower my standards. They say, oh come on, why do you judge it so harshly? It's only a Marvel movie or a Star Wars show or even a certain Predator movie. Well, I like to push aside fanboyism, Twitter mobs, and any kind of politics attached and critique a movie or a TV show with only one single metric in mind. Is it good or is it shit? Now, with all that in mind, let's go look at Prey. Is it good or bad, you might ask? Well, there is not a simple answer here. The first half of the movie is a weak and slow historical drama about a teenage Comanche girl that wants to become a hunter and tries and fails again and again. And the second half is a mostly enjoyable action movie with a predator that's a bit dumb and slow and wet behind the ears, but what the hell, the action scenes were fun enough for me to overlook certain things that didn't make sense. But that's the thing, all the good things in the movie happen about 2/3 in. The directing and cinematography are really good, but what holds everything together are the action scenes, the fight choreography, and overall the brilliant work of the stunting. Now, I'm gonna come back to the action scenes in a moment, but now I want to focus on the biggest problem of the movie, its main character, the teenage Comanche girl. To say that she's unlikable is a massive understatement. She's annoying, selfish as fuck, and her character doesn't really have any kind of growth. Also, her stoic demeanor and her lack of emotion makes her character really suffer, because if she doesn't show her feelings, how can we empathize with her? Early in the movie, she says she wants to become a hunter, and lo and behold, in the end, she achieves her goal. But that doesn't really change who she is as a person, and that's a hell of a missing piece to have for a character. I mean, basically what happens in the film is, she wants a job, she gets the job, and her wish to become a hunter comes not as some kind of deep internal desire, but more like she's reacting to the world around her, like she says here in this scene.
Why do you want to hunt? Because you all think that I can't.
Now her tribe doesn't want her to become a hunter because her people are a hunter-gatherer society. Their survival depends upon strong hunters going out to the wild, killing animals, let's say a deer, and then bringing it back, 200 pounds of meat through rough terrain. Now, even for a strong and capable man, that will be difficult enough, more so if the hunter is a woman. And also, our main character, Naru is her name, lacks training, stamina, strength, and experience. And although she does do some training with her little axe in the woods, predator aside, it doesn't really help her all that much as a hunter, because as we see in the movie, well, it's not really useful against deers or even bears. Her axe works mainly as a MacGuffin, so she can have something to use against the predator. Another thing that makes character immersion difficult is that Naru is supposed to be this weathered and tough young Comanche woman, but because they hired an actress who is way too good looking for the part, well, she's basically a model, then the whole character immersion really falls apart. Because how can anyone really think that a 100-something pound teenage girl is capable of fighting any kind of large opponent, be it human or alien? It's just not realistic, not even in the confines of a science fiction film. Now, if they hired someone that at least looked the part of a hunter, warrior woman, then I only think there will be a lot of questions regarding her fighting abilities. Now, if we want to look for a good example of a drama that had to portray a hardened female fighter, well, look no further than Game of Thrones. For the role of Brienne of Tarth, of course, they casted a tall and big actress to play the part. Okay, granting the armor made her look much bigger than she actually was, but still, appearances matter and we tend to judge a person at first glance and form an opinion about them. And at first, and second, and third glance, Naru is just not convincing as a would-be warrior/hunter. Now, because the film styles itself as a predator movie, it gives all its focus and budget and attention at the last 45 minutes or so, when the predator wreaks havoc and destruction against the bad guys, and leaves the first part of the film a bit lacking. The first shots that we see made me think that I'm not watching a historical drama, but some independent film with some film students cosplaying in the woods. Thankfully, first impressions aside, that doesn't last long, but the first half hour is really lacking in pretty much everything. But the most striking thing that's missing, and it doesn't really get any better as the film progresses, is the dialogue. I mean, the characters use modern language, tone, and expressions that makes them sound like modern teenagers talking in a parking lot somewhere in Los Angeles. Now, the film uses a classic dialogue trope where the characters among them speak their native Comanche language, but still, it doesn't really explain the spotty and messy dialogue. Now, let's go take a closer look at the plot in order to see what happens in the movie so we are all on the same page. The film quickly introduces that Naru, our teenage Comanche main character, has some talent as a healer, having a solid knowledge of herbs of the area, but she prefers spending her time trying to become a hunter than helping out with the work of the tribe. She meets a group of Comanche warriors that go to the woods to hunt a mountain lion that is a danger to the tribe, and with the help of her brother Tave, she convinces them to come along. There, at the first time that she actually has to hunt a dangerous animal, she makes a mess of everything and she almost loses her life. But at the last moment, her brother comes along and saves her from the lion. Her brother Tave gets all the praise when he comes back to the tribe holding the lion's head as a trophy. Naru isn't too happy about that. You can even say that she's a bit jealous, and she keeps insisting that the danger of the tribe isn't over. Some other big predator, maybe a bear, is still out there. So Naru, being headstrong and single-minded, she heads out to the woods, encounters a bear, almost dies at the process, and for a second time, someone else has to come and save her from dying. And of course, that someone else is the predator. And man, I gotta hand it to the film. This scene is actually good. Naru watches dumbfounded as the predator picks up the bear and absolutely destroys it. Now, how come the predator can fuck up a bear so easily, but can't fuck up our Comanche warrior girl later on in the film? Well, I'm gonna chalk it up as some good old-fashioned plot armor for our main character. Naru manages to escape in the woods, although the predator wasn't really chasing her, because, he doesn't see her as a threat, and there she meets the same group of Comanche hunters from before, and she tries to tell them about the predator. Of course, they're not very convinced about the prospect of a godlike monster lurking about. Out of the blue, the tone of the scene changes abruptly, and asshole Comanche guy becomes asshole violent guy, and we have this bizarre fight scene between Naru and him. And in the process, Naru comes up on top and somehow wins, and the only way for the Comanche warriors to control her is to sucker punch her. Now, this whole sequence doesn't really make any sense. Being a hunter and being a warrior is not the same thing. Asshole Comanche guy is a warrior and a hunter. Knowing how to fight is his job. Naru is a tiny girl, the chief's daughter. Are we now left to assume that she went to the woods for 2 days and somehow learned to fight and wrestle? I mean, what, is there a BJJ class out in the woods that we don't know about? But the real reason of why the Comanche warrior suddenly became violent towards our main character, the people that she knows her entire life, is just because the movie needed some bad guys for cannon fodder. So when the predator comes along and fucks them up, we're not gonna feel bad about their deaths. That is a very manipulative way to tell a story, and that happens again and again in the film. Naru escapes yet again, meets up with her brother Tave, but gets captured by the French trappers that are in the area. Here, the Machiavellian manipulation that the film uses increases in a ridiculous degree. Yet again, the film needs bad guys for the predator to kill, so the movie makes the French trappers look like absolute savages. They're dirty, they grunt and slur their words, and they look and behave like the director made them jump into a pool of mud and shit before each take. In comparison, the Native Americans all look pristine, beautiful even, with their hair combed and faces and bodies all clean like a baby. I mean, honestly, they look like they are ready for a photoshoot. The film, in a very manipulative way, suggests that the Native Americans are the civilized peoples and the French trappers are the blood-hungry savages. For reasons that aren't exactly clear, the French trappers try to capture the predator, not a good idea, and are absolutely annihilated. Now, from this moment on, the film becomes a proper predator movie. It is clear that a big chunk of the film's budget went to this last 45 minutes or so of the film, and to be honest, it was absolutely worth it. From here on out, the cinematography suddenly changes, and what up to this moment looked like a budget-restrained, independent-looking film now becomes a dark and grim horror action thriller. This fight sequence is hands down the best part of the film, just because it's so much fun and we don't have to worry about any plot holes or character fuck-ups. What I really loved in this long fight sequence is that the action team took its time to create a death for each of the trappers that was unique and fun, And it kinda reminded me of the fatalities in Mortal Kombat. It's also a bit weird that we need to reach up to this final action sequence of the film for the trappers to get any kind of individual characteristics. And that characteristic is, funnily enough, how they die. During the fight, Naru and her brother try to make a run for it, but they stumble upon the predator and Tave has to sacrifice his life for her to get away. Now, as much fun there was to this whole action sequence, that fun quickly ends, and we move to the final part of the film where Naru decides to trap and hunt the predator. Now, to be honest, I find this whole fight sequence not very plausible, because how exactly are we supposed to believe that not only she, a tiny, untrained girl who just decided she's a hunter, but how can any human survive long enough and finally go toe to toe with a predator using mostly physical strength? The problem, of course, isn't that she finally ends up defeating the predator, it's how she accomplishes her goal. If we take a look at two great female characters, Ripley from Alien and Sarah Connor from the Terminator films, they finally manage to defeat their much larger and stronger foes, not by using physical strength, but learning to use their head. And this was the point of the first Predator. In that movie, the characters were all jacked up, they were all huge and strong, but their strength amounted to nothing because the Predator was much stronger from all of them, and the only way the Predator gets defeated in the end is when the character of Arnold Schwarzenegger decides to use his head and his environment to his advantage. In comparison, in Prey, the movie makes the mistake of putting Naru in an extended fight with the Predator, and the Predator has to become this slow and dumb as fuck villain, because we can't have him landing a strike on Naru, that would kill her on the spot. So now she has to dance around him, landing hit after hit, like we're watching some kind of comedy. Although I have to say props again to the action team, at least the fight is fun and silly enough to let your mind drift away for a bit. It's kinda like the stunt team looked at the script, then looked at the main character, saw the small stature of the actress, and decided to make the fight as cartoonish as possible, because it was the only way it would work, and it would be somewhat believable. Now, the way that Naru kills the Predator feels a bit cheap. In a previous scene, they have set up that without his helmet, the Predator can't shoot straight, so Naru, by stealing his helmet and placing it at the right spot, she makes the Predator to basically kill himself. And it's a bit cheap because when you create a rule like that, it kinda works both ways. I mean, I expect the Predator to learn from his mistake and catch the dart before it kills him. And then our main character would have to find another way of killing him, and that would have made her effort much more difficult, but much more rewarding in the end. By making the Predator slow and dumb, you cheapen all the efforts of Naru to defeat him. The movie makes it easier on her, and it just doesn't look good. Now, although this final fight sequence does have some structural problems, if you think about it for a second, it shouldn't even really exist. Because for Naru to trap and hunt down the Predator, well, that doesn't really make any sense. I mean, yes, her main desire in the film is to become a hunter, and she wants to take revenge for her brother, but she has seen throughout the film what the Predator can do. She just saw him killing scores of people, great warriors, including her brother. After all of that, she should have been running for the hills, back to her tribe to warn them and get the hell out of there. I mean, the Predator wasn't really chasing her, she could have just walked out of there. But Naru is so single-minded that she gets herself involved and risks her life by setting the trap for the Predator. If we take a look again at Alien and the Terminator films, Ripley and Sarah Connor finally face their foes, not because they want to, but because they don't have a choice. Here, Naru does have a choice, but not only she doesn't use that choice and just leave, but she goes to great lengths to lure the Predator using one of the injured French trappers. Before going any further, I feel compelled to mention the use of the magic herb that Naru uses in order to lower her temperature so the Predator can't see her. And I call it a magic herb because if it actually worked as advertised in the movie, she would just die of hypothermia. But whatever, let's move on. The end of the film finds Naru coming back to her tribe, holding the head of the Predator as a trophy, just like her brother did earlier in the film. And Naru smiles and we see the faces of the little girls of the tribe, and this is supposed to be an empowering moment, or even a heroic moment for our main character. But the thing is, Naru has spent all day running for her life. She has seen blood and carnage of epic proportions, And most importantly, she has seen her brother getting eviscerated and killed right in front of her eyes. And after all of that, you mean to tell me that the character would just stand there and smile? I mean, come on. How self-centered and nihilistic can someone be to just forget the death of their brother? In all seriousness, the end should have been a catharsis for Naru. We need to see how destroyed and changed she is by this bloody and gruesome experience. But none of that happened. The end treats Naru as a true hero, someone that did no wrong. And for me, that just doesn't work. Now let's suppose for the sake of this video that there was an alternative ending, where Naru realizes that her brother getting killed, her tribesman dying. None of that would have happened if she just didn't go out in the woods and started actively searching for the predator. Her brother and the other hunters wouldn't be out looking for her, and so they wouldn't have been captured by the French trappers. This end would find Naru regretting her decision to become a hunter. She would break down and cry. She's a broken shell of a woman. She has succeeded in her goal in becoming a hunter, but she destroyed everything and everyone else around her. Not only it would make the film much better, but we would empathize with her as a character, and also of course it would tie in the story with Predator 2, because the pistol that we are shown in that film comes from the French trappers. So now it makes sense that in order for that Predator to use the pistol, he would have to come back and get it from Naru, possibly killing her and maybe all of her tribe in the process, and making this alternative prey a true tragedy film that never was. In the end, I think this movie is a lost opportunity. With a little more effort, it could have ended up being a much better film. So, this is all I got. If you liked the video, please like, share and leave a comment. For more videos, please consider subscribing and pressing the bell button.